Have you ever found yourself in a heated argument with a friend or family member about politics or religion and wondered how two good, moral people could see the world so differently? Why is it that we can agree on so many things, yet when it comes to certain hot-button issues, it feels like we're speaking completely different languages? Welcome to CEO's Library, the 1% Bookshelf, where we dive deep into the most impactful books shaping industries and driving innovation. I'm your host, and today we're exploring a book that offers fascinating insights into these questions: The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion, by social psychologist Jonathan Haidt. In the next 20 minutes, we'll take you on a journey through the human mind and morality. You'll discover why your intuitions often drive your moral judgments, how we evolve to be both selfish and groupish, and why understanding the foundations of morality is crucial for bridging the divides in our society. Whether you're a business leader trying to navigate office politics, an entrepreneur seeking to understand your customers better, or simply someone who wants to have more constructive conversations with those who disagree with you, this episode will provide you with valuable insights and practical tools. So let's dive in and explore The Righteous Mind. Our tour of The Righteous Mind begins with one of Haidt's central ideas: moral foundations theory. Imagine, if you will, that our moral sense is like a tongue with 6 taste receptors. Just as our tongues can detect sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami, and fat, Haidt argues that our moral minds are built to recognize 6 fundamental moral flavors. Let's break these down one by one. First, we have care, harm. This foundation is all about our ability to feel and dislike the pain of others. It underlies virtues of kindness and nurturance. Think about how you feel when you see a child or an animal suffering. That's the care foundation at work. Next, there's fairness, cheating. This relates to our sense of justice, rights, and autonomy. It's the part of us that bristles at inequality and unfair treatment. When you feel that someone has cut in line or gotten an unfair advantage, that's your fairness foundation speaking up. The third foundation is loyalty, betrayal. This is about our tendency to form cohesive groups and to feel a sense of obligation to those groups. It's the foundation that makes us feel patriotic, or that gives us that surge of pride when our sports team wins. Fourth, we have authority subversion. This foundation relates to our respect for hierarchy and tradition. It's what makes us defer to legitimate authority and feel that social order is important. The fifth foundation is sanctity degradation. This might seem odd at first, but it's about our tendency to feel that some things are pure and sacred, while others are disgusting or polluting. It's not just about physical disgust, it can apply to moral issues too. Think about how some people react to the idea of desecrating a flag, or how you might feel if someone suggested cooking and eating your pet. Finally, Haidt later added a 6th foundation: liberty oppression. This is about our resentment towards those who would dominate us and restrict our liberty. It's the foundation that makes us bristle at overbearing authority figures or support underdogs fighting against oppression. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Haidt's research shows that liberals and conservatives prioritize these foundations differently. Liberals tend to place a lot of emphasis on care and fairness, with some attention to liberty. Conservatives, on the other hand, value all 6 foundations more equally. Let's consider a concrete example to see how this plays out. Take the issue of immigration. A liberal might focus on the care foundation, emphasizing the suffering of refugees and the need to help them. They might also invoke fairness, arguing that it's unjust for some people to have so many opportunities just because of where they were born. A conservative, on the other hand, might be more concerned about loyalty to the nation, the need to maintain social order, authority, and protecting the purity of the nation's culture, sanctity. They might also worry about fairness in a different way. Is it fair to legal immigrants if others enter the country illegally? Understanding these different moral foundations can be a game changer in how we approach political and moral disagreements. It helps us see that our opponents aren't necessarily immoral or irrational. They're often working from a different set of moral priorities. Now that we've explored the foundations of morality, let's dive into another key insight from Haidt's work. The idea that intuition comes first and strategic reasoning second. Haidt uses a powerful metaphor to illustrate this point. He says our minds are like a rider on an elephant. The rider represents our conscious reasoning, while the elephant represents our intuitions, emotions, and unconscious mental processes. Here's the crucial point. The rider isn't really in control. Instead, the rider's job is mostly to serve the elephant, to come up with reasons to justify where the elephant wants to go anyway. This might sound disheartening at first. After all, we like to think of ourselves as rational beings, carefully weighing evidence before coming to reasoned conclusions. But Haidt argues that this isn't how moral judgments typically work. Instead, we usually have quick, intuitive reactions to moral situations. That's the elephant moving. Then our inner lawyer, the rider, gets to work, coming up with reasons to justify our intuition. Haidt and his colleagues demonstrated this in a series of clever experiments. They would present people with scenarios designed to trigger a moral intuition, even when there was no rational reason for moral condemnation. For example, they asked people about a hypothetical case where adult siblings have consensual, protected sex just once, with no negative consequences. Most people immediately say this is wrong, but when asked to explain why, they struggle. They might say, well, they could have a deformed baby, even though the scenario specified that they used protection. Or they might say it could harm their relationship, even though the story said it didn't. This is what Haidt calls moral dumbfounding. We have strong moral intuitions, but we often can't explain them rationally. The elephant has decided, and the rider is scrambling to justify the decision. This doesn't mean that reasoning is useless in moral matters. We can, with effort, override our initial intuitions. And importantly, we can be influenced by the reasoning of others, especially if we're in a calm, reflective state of mind. But it does mean that if we want to persuade others on moral issues, appealing to reason alone often isn't enough. We need to speak to the elephant as well as the rider. For business leaders and entrepreneurs, this insight is crucial. When you're trying to build a company culture, launch a new product, or persuade stakeholders, remember that you're not just dealing with rational actors, you're dealing with elephants and riders. Appeal to intuition and emotion as well as reason. We've explored the foundations of morality and the primacy of intuition. Now let's turn to another key idea in The Righteous Mind, the principle that morality binds and blinds. Haidt argues that human beings are fundamentally groupish creatures. Yes, we're selfish to some extent. Haidt says we're 90% chimp, but we're also 10% bee. Like bees, we have the capacity to lose ourselves in the hive, to become part of something larger than ourselves. This groupishness, Haidt argues, is a product of our evolutionary history. Groups with the ability to cooperate and act as a unit would have had a significant advantage over groups of purely selfish individuals. Religion plays a crucial role in this story. Haidt sees religion not primarily as a set of beliefs about supernatural agents, but as a set of cultural practices that bind people together into moral communities. Religious rituals, shared beliefs, and sacred values all serve to create a sense of group cohesion. This binding function of morality has been incredibly adaptive for our species. It's allowed us to form larger and larger cooperative groups, eventually leading to the complex societies we have today. But there's a downside to this groupishness, and that's where the blinds part comes in. The same moral intuitions that bind us together can also blind us to the merits of other groups and other ways of thinking. Think about political partisanship, for example. Once we identify strongly with a political party, we tend to see everything through that lens. We're quick to find fault with the other side and to excuse missteps on our own side. Our moral matrices, the interlocking sets of values, virtues, and ideas we subscribe to, can become like a cage, trapping us in one way of seeing the world. Haidt uses the metaphor of tribal moral communities to describe this phenomenon. Just as ancient tribes might have gone to war over differences in religious beliefs or cultural practices, today we see intense conflicts between different moral and political tribes. This tribal psychology explains a lot about our current political landscape. It's not just that liberals and conservatives disagree on specific issues. They often seem to be operating in completely different moral universes. Conservatives, Haidt found, tend to have a broader range of moral concerns. They value all 6 of the moral foundations we discussed earlier. Liberals, on the other hand, place most of their emphasis on care and fairness, with some attention to liberty. This leads to some fundamental misunderstandings. Liberals often can't understand why conservatives are so concerned about things like patriotism, respect for authority, or traditional sexual morality. From a liberal moral matrix focused on care and fairness, these concerns can seem irrelevant at best and oppressive at worst. Conservatives, for their part, often see liberals as naive or even threatening to the moral fabric of society. From a conservative perspective, liberals are ignoring crucial moral foundations that help hold society together. The result is often not just disagreement, but a complete inability to understand where the other side is coming from. We end up talking past each other, each side convinced of its own righteousness and baffled by the apparent immorality of the other. For business leaders, understanding this dynamic is crucial. Whether you're managing a diverse team, trying to market to different demographics, or navigating the complex landscape of corporate social responsibility, you need to be aware of these different moral matrices. And so, given all of this, how can we hope to bridge these moral divides? Haidt offers several suggestions, and I'd like to add a few of my own. First, we need to cultivate moral humility. Recognizing that our own moral intuitions are shaped by our evolutionary history and cultural context can help us be more open to other perspectives. Remember, the fact that something feels intuitively right to you doesn't necessarily mean it's objectively true. Second, we should try to understand and appreciate all 6 moral foundations, even if we personally prioritize some over others. If you're a liberal, try to understand why loyalty, respect for authority, and sanctity might be important moral values. If you're a conservative, consider why an exclusive focus on care and fairness might sometimes be necessary. Third, when engaging with those who disagree with you, try to frame your arguments in terms of their moral foundations. If you're trying to persuade a conservative audience about the importance of environmental protection, for example, you might appeal to the sanctity foundation by talking about preserving the purity of nature, rather than focusing solely on harm prevention. Fourth, look for common ground. Despite our differences, there's usually some overlap in our moral concerns. Finding these areas of agreement can be a starting point for more productive dialogue. Fifth, engage in what psychologist Paul Bloom calls higher-level empathy. This means going beyond just feeling what others feel to understanding why they feel and think the way they do. Try to inhabit the other person's moral matrix to see the world through their eyes. Lastly, remember that diversity, including moral diversity, can be a strength. Different moral perspectives can act as checks and balances on each other, preventing any one view from going to extremes. In a business context, these insights can be incredibly valuable. They can help you build more cohesive teams, navigate conflicts more effectively, and create products and services that resonate with a wider range of people. As we wrap up our exploration of the righteous mind, let's recap the key insights we've covered. 1. Our moral minds are built on 6 foundational concerns: care, fairness, loyalty, authority, sanctity, and liberty. 2. Intuition comes first, strategic reasoning second. We're not purely rational beings. Our moral judgments are heavily influenced by quick, intuitive responses. 3. Morality binds us into groups, but it can also blind us to alternative perspectives. 4. Liberals and conservatives often operate from different moral matrices, leading to fundamental misunderstandings. 5. Bridging moral divides requires moral humility, an appreciation for different moral foundations, and a willingness to step outside our own moral matrix. Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind offers a profound and nuanced look at human morality and its role in our social and political lives. By understanding the foundations of our moral intuitions and the ways they shape our thinking, we can hope to foster more constructive dialogue across moral and political divides. Whether you're a business leader, an entrepreneur, or simply someone trying to navigate our increasingly polarized world, the insights from this book can help you communicate more effectively, build stronger relationships, and perhaps even contribute to a more understanding and cohesive society. I encourage you to reflect on your own moral foundations. What do you value most? How might your moral intuitions be shaping your judgments without you realizing it? And how can you use these insights to engage more productively with those who see the world differently? Thank you for joining us on this journey through The Righteous Mind. If you'd like to dive deeper into these ideas, you can find a link to purchase the book in our episode description. Until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and keep striving to understand those around you.